An early morning phone call shattered the quiet life I once believed was unshakable. When my daughter, Alyssa, disappeared, leaving behind only her passport and a secret hidden beneath that distant smile, I knew that not just my family, but my entire life would never be the same again. Truth is never simple, and sometimes the very thing you don't want to know is the one thing you can't escape. Before we begin this story, let me know where you are listening from in the comments below. My name is Evelyn. I'm 68 years old, and what I'm about to tell you today will forever change the way you see your own family. I remember the sound first, the gentle bubbling of the coffee pot on the stove, like the small heartbeat of our kitchen. Mornings in Asheville usually felt like a soft hand resting on my shoulder. The porch light still cast a golden glow on the dew-wet steps. A thin wisp of fog clung to the oak tree behind the house, and the radio in the corner hummed a quiet hymn. If peace had a texture, it would be the smooth pine beneath my fingertips, and I was tracing it for no reason at all when the day suddenly split in two. Daniel had left before dawn. A kiss on my temple, laces tied neat, his thermos clinking softly against his thigh as he crossed the back door. The screen door clicked shut. The old truck coughed a few times, then rolled onto the road like a tamed horse. Mason had just hopped on the school bus, his backpack swinging, his wide grin tossed back over his shoulder, as if he'd forever be 9 and always late. I waved, tucked that tiny picture into the album in my mind, then drew the curtains. At the end of the hall, the shower hissed, steam thickening the doorway. A voice called out, bright as always. "I'll be quick, Mom!" Alyssa, my daughter-in-law. Same syllables, same rhythm. Almost. There was a faint vibration underneath the familiar tone, a sharpness, like a violin tuned just a half note too high. Raising 3 boys into men had taught me the smallest rhythms of a household. A single offbeat could chill my bones. I was still watching the steam swirl like milk when the landline rang. The wall phone by the pantry, an old habit I never broke. The ring filled the kitchen. My heart tightened. I lifted the receiver. "Mom?" A whisper, swallowed by airport noise. "It's me." "Ethan?" I pressed the phone close. People say you can't hear expression over a call, but any mother knows better. "I'm at the gate," he said, his voice low, sentences clipped, the way he talked when time was short. "Mom, something doesn't add up." Immediately, the coffee pot sounded too loud. I turned the burner down with 2 fingers. "What is it, son?" "Alyssa just boarded the flight to London." A pause, thick with the word impossible. "First class, seat 2A. She's with some guy in a tailored suit. Expensive. And, Mom, listen to me. I'm holding her passport right now." The words clattered like screws falling off a shelf, scattering into corners I never knew the room had. I looked toward the bathroom. Water still running. The oven glass fogged in perfect symmetry, as if someone had painted over it. "Say that again." "Seat 2A, first class," he repeated, breath fogging the receiver. "She checked in last night, walked through pre-boarding like she owned the place. Mom, I'm holding her passport, the one she left at your house on Sunday." Behind me, a soft footstep on the wooden floor. A towel brushed the door frame. A voice, smooth as a smile, laid beside a butter knife. "Glad you're home, Mom." For half a second, I split in two. The woman holding the phone in a sunlit kitchen, and the one who just stepped outside her own body to stand in thin air. I'd lived long enough to know you don't argue with truth just because you wish it were different. Are you sure it's her? I asked, my lips barely moving. I saw her up close, hair tied low, sand-colored coat, red bag, her walk, and that way, she looks through people when she's focused. Ethan let out a dry laugh. I've got to get in the cockpit. They're calling final boarding. But Mom, I don't have a word for it yet. I could hear the static of announcements, rolling suitcases, the dull thud of something striking metal. Ethan's voice dropped to a thread. Lock the doors. I'll call after takeoff. Fly safe, son. I steadied my tone as if I could send that calm up the phone line into the sky. Don't tell anyone. Not yet. Copy. The line clicked, leaving only the hollow hum. I set the receiver down. It felt heavier than plastic. The coffee simmered softer. The hymn on the radio flickered, then dimmed, as if searching for the right key again. From the hall, she appeared. Alyssa. Yesterday's Alyssa. Hair damp, white shirt sleeves rolled, a bead of water tracing her shoulder into the collar. The scent. Off. Not the warm jasmine she'd worn for 10 years, but something cool, faintly marine. A touch of spice at the edge of my nose. I noted it, didn't label it. One thing at a time. It's so bright out. She smiled, stepping into the kitchen. Coffee smells amazing. My hand stayed steady because I told it to. Your cup's on the counter, sweetheart. She reached for it with her left hand. People write memoirs about wars and weddings. I could write one about hands. Alyssa always tied her apron with her right, opened jars with her right, tossed towels with her right. There was even a thin callus on her ring finger from garden twine. That left-handed reach, natural, sure, was new. Did you switch hands? I asked lightly. She looked at me over the rim of her cup, her smile perfectly folded like a linen napkin. Just trying something different, Mom. Her eyes were bright, but distant. I'd seen that look before. In brides right before the aisle and at bus stations. It meant a door had opened somewhere, if not in this house, then in the one inside her chest. I wiped the countertop that was already spotless. Still planning to stop by the West Asheville Farmers Market? Yes. She set her cup down, tapping a nail on the porcelain rim. A soft ting, precise. Just a quick run. We're out of strawberries. Mason wants pancakes. Then wear the white shirt. Sun's lovely today. She nodded and disappeared down the hall. The porch light, the one I always forgot to turn off until noon, still spilled a tiny square of gold on the steps. When Daniel worked night shifts, that light was the promise I could keep. When baby Mason burned with fevers he didn't deserve, that light said dawn would find us. The things we keep steady for years often become the lighthouses we didn't know we'd built. The front door closed. The sedan in the driveway started, backed up, rolled down the hill. I stood alone in the kitchen. Every sound felt magnified. The dripping under the sink I kept forgetting to fix, the paper calendar fluttering when the AC kicked on. My palm left a clear circle on the fogged glass of the oven. I wiped it with the heel of my hand and saw my reflection. Older than I'd been that morning, the corners of my mouth deeper, my eyes locked in place. I opened the top cupboard, reached past the stack of Christmas plates, and pulled down an old leather notebook I hadn't touched in years. The brown had faded to soft soil, its corners bent like petals. I laid it on the table, uncapped my pen, and drew a breath. Once. Twice. 6:18 a.m. Voice in the bathroom slightly different. Steam. Porch light still on. Phone call. Ethan at the gate. Alyssa boarded flight to London. First class, seat 2A, with man in suit. Ethan holding her passport. I paused, listening. To the house. To my own body. Fear is a good driver. If you hand it the wheel, I'd lived long enough to know. You can't. You put the truth on the table. You look it in the eye. The latch clicked. The door opened. She walked back in, breath slightly high, as if she'd only gone to the mailbox. The white shirt was gone, replaced by a navy blouse, sleeves rolled neatly, cooler, cleaner. No grocery bag, no box of strawberries for pancakes. Forget something? I asked. Too crowded. Changed my mind. Her tone was smooth, almost sing-song. She moved to the sink and, with her left hand, turned the faucet, letting a thin stream of water run over her wrist, as though cooling a spot of heat there. I closed the notebook and slid it under the Bible on the shelf. I could feel my pulse in my throat, but my voice came out just right. Even. Kind, like neighbors chatting over a fence. I lifted the receiver again, pressed it to my ear without dialing. The static murmured like a small ocean. I pictured Ethan buckling in, flipping switches, reading checklists in the same voice he'd used the day he first said milk. I imagined the metal tube lifting from the quiet morning earth. Seat 2A reclined, red bag at her feet. A woman I recognized, and didn't. I set the receiver down and turned. She was watching me, not curious, measuring. The look of someone weighing her next line and its cost. Who was that on the phone, Mom? She asked, her gaze cold enough to raise the hairs on my arms. And just like that, the morning tore clean open. The question. Who was that on the phone, Mom? Still vibrated in the air like a taut string between the stove and the counter. I smiled, pretending to busy my hands with the dish towel, just long enough to steady my breath. Wrong number, sweetheart, I said, with a voice believable enough. The radio murmured a quiet hymn. Sunlight lay in long stripes across the pine table. The coffee pot sighed softly, like a small creature finally at rest. I pulled out the cast iron skillet, brushed on a thin layer of oil, poured the batter. The sweet scent rose, clinging to the curtains. Alyssa leaned against the counter, her hair still damp, white sleeves rolled up, a cool, faintly spicy fragrance brushing past like a cold ocean breeze, not the warm jasmine that had followed her for 10 years. I filed that away into the drawer labeled Memory. First time. She lifted the ceramic mug with her left hand, steadying the base, thumb grazing the rim, motion fluid and practiced. I asked softly, letting the question drop like a thread into water. You're right-handed, aren't you? She smiled gently. Just trying something new, Mom. Sure, change is good. I smiled back, but in my head, I ticked a box. Left hand. I plated Mason's pancakes, sprinkled some crushed walnuts, drizzled syrup in a spiral. My eyes stayed on the edge of the pancake for the right moment to flip, but my ears listened to the house's smallest sounds. The refrigerator's soft click of defrost, the clock's steady tick, the breathing of a woman performing a familiar role. By the sink, the new perfume brushed past again, sharper this time. One note stronger. Second time. She looked at the stove glass, its fog thinning, and asked idly, Does this scent smell too sharp to you, Mom? It's different from the jasmine, but clean. I replied plainly. I feel like the old one doesn't suit me anymore. People change with time, I said, and fell silent. I didn't mention the birthdays when I'd gifted her that same jasmine, or that people rarely change scents suddenly, unless they're changing something far deeper. She ate lightly, then rolled up her sleeves to wash the dishes. Left hand held the bowl, right hand worked the sponge, her shoulders moving naturally, like someone born left-handed. I leaned against the doorway, watching the water trace a clean shine across the porcelain, the soft clinking of dishes steady as the rhythm of someone unhurried. I might stop by the West Asheville Farmers Market, Mom. It was crowded this morning, she said, her voice sweet, her eyes distant, as if listening to another tune in her head. Go early while it's cool. Come back before lunch, I answered, keeping the thread of conversation even, without pulling. She went to change clothes. The sound of hangers sliding, a drawer closing halfway. When she walked down the hallway, white blouse, hair tied low, a canvas tote embroidered, with daisies hanging at her hip. I noticed the strap, one of those habits no one else would care about. Usually, she wore it right to left. Today, left to right. I filed another note into the folder possibly relevant, not yet pinned. I'm heading out, Mom. All right, go on. The door closed. The engine started, backed down the slope. I returned to the kitchen, pulled the leather notebook from beneath the Bible, flipped to a new page, and wrote Rule of 3. Then I marked 1. Left hand, cup. 2. Strange perfume. The third box I left blank. I closed the notebook and put it back. The house was quiet, save for the hum of the vent and the scent of butter. I rinsed the cups, swept up bits of flour, opened the window a crack to let in the smell of maple leaves and the Patel's baked goods drifting from next door. I reminded myself, the truth belongs on the table, not on a person. I stood by the sink until my heartbeat found its old rhythm again. The car returned sooner than expected. Door opened. Navy blue shirt flickered past my sight, her wrist still damp, as if freshly rinsed, hands empty, no vegetables, no strawberries. The new perfume sliced through the kitchen like a strange wind. Too crowded. I came back early. I'll go again later, when it's quieter, she said, slipping the bag strap off and setting it on a chair. All right, have lunch first, I replied softly. But behind that gentle tone was a woman quietly sorting clues into boxes. For lunch, I grilled fish, the kind Alyssa used to say smelled too strong. Smells amazing, Mom, she said, words crisp and round. I didn't argue with changed tastes. I only noted the reversal. I might stop by the market again later, she said. If you go, go early. Haywood gets backed up in the afternoon, I replied, like a townswoman giving directions carved from habit. She changed again, still navy blue. I'll be quick, she said, her hand closing over the doorknob just right. Deliberate, like leaving a mark only she could read. The door clicked neatly shut. I opened the drawer beside the phone, took out a small spiral notebook, the kind you carry with you, and set it down, ready for immediate notes. I pulled out the thick leather notebook, turned back to the morning's page, and filled the third box. West Asheville Market. Sweet voice, distant eyes, left in white, returned in navy, no groceries. I drew a clean circle around it. Below it, I ruled a line and wrote, Observe in daylight, public place. No accusation without proof. Protect Mason. Keep the kitchen calm. The sunlight shifted across the window, leaving a new stripe on the table. My blue and white kitchen remained tidy, fragrant, trustworthy. Except now it bore a hairline crack. Thin, delicate, the kind unnoticed by most, but not by a mother who's lived too long. I stood, smoothed the tablecloth, set a glass of water where Mason usually sat, and exhaled a long breath, like someone pulling a small boat safely to shore. The navy blue silhouette closed the bedroom door. The hinge sighed faintly. I watched until the very last second, letting my eyes do their work. Then, slowly, I reached up to the high cupboard, to the spot my hand knew by heart, and drew out the old journal. The cool leather touched my palm. I placed it on the table, traced my fingers along its spine, and knew that from now on, every detail would have its place. I sat down, clicked the pen open. On the first line, I wrote the 3 words I promised myself to live by: grace, truth, consequence. Then I closed the journal and tucked it beneath the Bible. The bedroom door sealed in silence. My kitchen breathed evenly once more. But I knew the crack had appeared, and I had just laid my hand upon its edge. I carried my small spiral notebook to the reading nook by the window, a corner soft with the scent of sun-dried linen, where the armchair had molded itself to my shape over the years. On the shelf sat the family Bible, its spine frayed by seasons of trial. Every time my hand brushed it, my heart eased a beat. I laid the notebook beside it, slipping the pen into the coil like a needle tucked along the seam of a worn blouse. Unseen, yet the thing that keeps it from coming apart. Noon settled slowly. Inside, Mason sat at the table, coloring a blue fish his teacher had assigned. The wax tip scraped the paper with a faint rasp, like a tiny saw running steady. In the next room, the woman now called Alyssa paced back and forth, her steps unhurried, except when she turned into the bathroom, where each pause felt like someone remembering what role they were supposed to play. I peeled an apple. The crisp, tart scent pulled my thoughts back to the wooden table. "Mom," after I finished gluing my picture, the teacher said, "I need your signature again." Mason said, looking up, a streak of blue on his cheek. "You signed it yesterday, but she said your handwriting looked funny." "It's 'cause you used your left hand. I like when you're gentle like last night, when you didn't yell about the milk." My hand halted halfway on the blade. A sliver of sunlight sliced through the apple, bright as a needle. I smiled, wiping his cheek with a damp cloth. "All right, I'll be gentler." The words "left hand" and "gentle mother" sank first into the notebook in my mind before appearing in the one on the table, exactly the order I needed. I opened the spiral notebook and drew quick columns: time, location, detail, emotion, witness. I wrote in blue ink, leaving each line a small space to breathe, as if truth might grow in it. 10:05, kitchen, placed cup with left hand. New perfume, cool and spicy, shiver down neck. Me. 11:20, doorway, bag strap, left right, opposite habit. Me. 12:15, dining table, ate fish, said smells nice, used to avoid fishy scent. Me. 1:55, house, Mason. Mom signed with left hand, messy, mom, gentle. Witness. I dotted the pen, drew a line across, then wrote the vow I'd made to myself that morning. A mother must be the first to believe her child, but she cannot let fear do the thinking. Beneath it, I noted 3 words: grace, truth, outcome. I underlined truth. My work is to see, record, and name correctly. Carrying the tray of pastries from the women's club, I stopped by the church. Midweek, it was empty except for candle wax scent and the piano practicing hymns. Mrs. Whitaker came out from the choir room, arms full of sheet music, her kind smile trembling through the fine lines at her eyes. "Evelyn, alto again tonight?" she teased, then tilted her head to look closer. Women who've sung at too many funerals can read a face like sheet music. She lowered her voice. "I saw Alyssa in the hall earlier. She looked at me as if I were a stranger." Our Alyssa never used to be like that. The word hour brushed my shoulder like a warm shawl. She's probably just tired, I said, hearing my own voice curve strangely around the words. Mrs. Whitaker didn't argue. She simply laid a hand over mine for half a beat, a prayer without words. Call if you need, she said. I nodded, carried the empty tray home, grateful for the silence of grown-ups who know when not to speak. Back home, I brewed a pot of tea and went out to the porch. The sunlight slanted, maple shadows spreading like a woven cloth. I opened my notebook, pen ready, and reminded myself, don't pry, just observe. Don't touch, just record. The breeze slipped through the vine trellis, carrying the smell of sugar dough from the Patel's kitchen, the scent of things that never lie. 3:12 p.m. The door sounded. I didn't turn fully, only enough for the corner of my eye to catch the red bag on her shoulder. From a distance, red means travel, not errand. Friends, hospitals, airports. Her steps were brisk, head tilted as if checking a watch. She glanced toward the porch. One quick scan, then stepped down. The sedan rolled out of the drive. I wrote, 3:12, porch. Left, carrying red bag, hurried steps, checked watch. Me. I didn't follow the car with my eyes. I looked into the house. Mason was propping his cardboard into a frame, tongue peeking in concentration. I sent a single message to June. Remind me of the rule. The reply came quick, like a lifeline. Daytime, public, no trespassing. Don't confront without child protection plan. Grace before truth. Outcome later. I set the phone down as one would a stone to keep a door from closing. Evening came fast. I hung Mason's drawing of the fish on the line, the clothespin snapping shut with a crisp click. 5:54 p.m., the car pulled in. Door latch clicked. Navy blue shirt crossed the hallway, green blue bag on shoulder. Mom, I'm late. Gonna shower first. Her tone sharp, half a pitch higher than usual. The faucet ran louder than needed. Bottles clinked in odd places. I didn't ask. I wrote 5:54. Door, jogged bathroom, returned. Green blue bag, hurried tone, loud water, bottles misplaced. Me. Mason peeked out. Mom, when you read the big print book last night, I could hear the words. I smiled, ruffling his hair. Tonight we'll read big print again. A child's small sentence can hold a whole house steady, like setting one true brick that keeps the wall straight. In the kitchen, I switched on the warm light. It laid a thin glow across the wooden table, making everything seem half a shade kinder. I set the table for dinner, arranging bowls for Daniel, keeping the meal as the post that anchors the wind. She came out, hair tied high, blue shirt now dry. Let me help, she said, left hand lifting the tray, right hand pulling. The cloth, the left-handed motion smooth as a drawstring, rehearsed. The precision wasn't from neatness. It was from not wanting to leave traces. The teacher praised Mason today. I offered softly. I'm so proud of him. She smiled, but her eyes were far away, listening to another tune. If it's sunny tomorrow, I'll take him to the park. Not at noon, I said. Haywood Street doesn't get shade till late. I didn't ask. Are you busy tomorrow? An open question is the best stage for a closed lie. I chose to close the stage and open my notebook instead. Daniel came home, shoes dusty. I poured him water, asked about work, keeping the house's sound thick enough to cover the quiet notes others might hear. The spiral notebook I slid gently into the drawer beside the phone, the place where first movements pass and the first hand can reach. After dinner, she washed the dishes. Left hand forward, right hand behind. I wiped the table. Each stroke I counted as a line, drawn straight across the page. Place, name, correctly. I didn't want suspicion to become a nightmare shadow. I needed it to stay as dated, timed notes. And, if possible, with witnesses. Night fell. I drew the curtains. Crickets began behind the yard. Wind tapped softly on the tin roof. I opened the notebook one last time, closing the day's pattern. Left hand. New perfume, cool and spicy. Navy blue shirt, sweet voice, distant eyes. Red bag leaving. Green-blue bag returning. Hurried tone and cluttered bottles upon return. I drew brackets around them all and wrote in the margin. A pattern is forming. Those words nailed quietly into the wood grain of thought. No sound, but firm. I looked at the porch light. For years, I'd kept it on waiting. For Daniel after his shift. For Ethan's landing call. For Mason's fever to break. Tonight, I left it off. Not from less love, but from a love so full it knew darkness must do its part. Give truth a temporary shelter so it can step into light at the right hour. I stood in the kitchen doorway, one hand on the Bible's cover, the other on the notebook, one on grace, one on truth. Outcome I left for tomorrow, when there would be ground to stand on. I turned off the kitchen light. In the dark, soft as a black cloth, I heard faintly the ticking of our wall clock blending with another clock somewhere, not ours, keeping pace. But all clocks will strike their hour, and I, too, had set mine. When the pattern repeats 3 times, I take the next step. Tonight, the notebook bore 3 ticks. I closed it, slid it into the drawer, and knew the fracture in our warmth had risen to the surface like a crack in old glaze. Visible, rhythmic, mapped, evening descended, and the light dimmed across the porch. I sat on the swing, holding a cup of tea, listening to the steady hum of cicadas, rising from the garden behind the house. Everything around me looked peaceful, but inside, I could feel the rhythm of a plan taking shape. The spiral notebook rested on my lap, the pen beside me, ready to capture every crucial detail. Everything was slowly turning into a system, a traceable, analyzable pattern. Over the past few days, I had begun to notice subtle changes in Alyssa's behavior. She no longer avoided eating fish, a strange shift. Just yesterday, I recorded her saying, "Mom, I like this fish. It smells so good." Something she could never have done before. And not just that. Each time I looked at her, I saw clearer signs of change. A pattern was emerging. My sense of that change didn't come from any single action, but from repeated variations. Last night, she didn't sing Mason to sleep like she always did. A small thing, yet telling. It reminded me of earlier times when she began to change her habits in ways I couldn't quite name. Even her perfume was different, lighter, yet somehow unsettling. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. Something wasn't right. She went to the market, but returned empty-handed. Odd. These small fragments only confirmed what my instincts already whispered. I began documenting everything in my notebook. No change was too small to escape attention. Each minor detail found its place on the page, building a map of repetition. By now, 3 clear patterns had formed. Change in taste. She started eating things she used to hate, like fish. Change in routine. She no longer sang Mason to sleep, no longer cared for her old habits. Change in attitude and behavior. She went shopping but brought nothing home, her eyes distant, as if hiding something. I decided I needed to observe more carefully, and to make sure I wouldn't lose the trail, I resolved to follow Alyssa's actions more closely. This morning, She said she was heading to the West Asheville Farmers Market. I told her to leave early to avoid the heat. She walked out in a white blouse, but the perfume was still that same strange scent I'd noticed the night before. I wrote in my notebook, 10:05 a.m., leaving for West Asheville Market, white blouse, unfamiliar perfume. Then I waited 15 minutes and began my own quiet observation. At the roundabout, I saw her turn, not toward the market, but down Depot Alley. That wasn't just odd, it was alarming. Nobody from our neighborhood ever went there. I followed at a safe distance, watching from behind the wheel. I noted, 10:18 a.m. Second roundabout, did not turn west, continued straight, turned into Depot Alley. I parked near a sidewalk cafe, watching from afar, careful not to be seen. I couldn't just let her vanish into that alley without knowing why. A few minutes later, she reemerged, empty-handed, no groceries. She wore sunglasses, but even through them, I could sense the chill in her eyes. She walked 3 houses down before getting into her car. No vegetable bag, no strawberries, just the same fabric tote I'd seen before. She never looked my way, walked as if guarding a secret. Everything was becoming far too clear. Tomorrow, I would need to clarify what I'd recorded. Not just her actions, but the recurring signs surrounding them. I wrote every detail for a reason, to confirm a truth, to find the link between her shifting behavior and the unseen change within our home. Back at the house, I updated my notes. 10:27 a.m. Returned empty-handed, no grocery stop. I drew a small arrow linking it to the previous patterns. I looked back through earlier entries. The connections between today and the past few days stood out plainly. Each similarity only strengthened my suspicion. This time, I decided not to confront her directly. Instead, I'd continue to record and watch. The system needed more data, several consecutive days' worth, to reach a sound conclusion. A few hours later, I called June. I followed her, June. I confessed softly. I don't know what to do next. Don't confront her yet, she warned. Keep watching. Don't skip anything. Write down everything that matters, and keep Mason safe. I took a deep breath and nodded, even though she couldn't see it. June always reminded me, nothing matters more than the children's safety. And I couldn't let these signs fade away, couldn't let the truth dissolve into the cracks of memory. After the call, I decided to keep observing, without making any rash moves. I couldn't let my emotions rush ahead of reason. By the end of the day, I sat once more with the notebook and wrote, tomorrow, review Alyssa's actions from morning to evening. Continue clarifying what's unfolding. The next day, I wouldn't just record her movements. I'd verify every accompanying detail. Even the smallest note would help me stay on course. My plan wasn't confrontation. It was careful, deliberate observation with a cool head and steady heart. That was the strategy I chose, though it wasn't an easy one. When Alyssa returned home, I didn't ask where she'd been or what she'd done. I simply reminded her gently to wash her hands before dinner, letting life appear as normal as possible. But deep down, I knew these patterns would reveal themselves again in the coming days, and I wouldn't miss a single trace. The pattern had begun repeating, and I knew once it appeared 3 times, it would become a system. When that happened, I would have enough to act. That morning, as sunlight poured through the kitchen windows, I felt the familiar peace of Asheville grow strangely heavy. The kitchen window was open, the light threading through every corner of the house. Yet something in the air made it impossible to take a deep, easy breath. It wasn't simple worry. It was unease, sharp and inexplicable. I sat down at the dining table, the teapot still steaming faintly. Weariness lingered on my face, no matter how hard I tried to hide it. Meanwhile, Alyssa prepared for the day as if everything were perfectly normal. She wore her white blouse, carrying the embroidered daisy tote bag she always took with her. But there was one thing different. That unfamiliar perfume again. New, cold, not the jasmine scent she'd always used. The strangeness of it stopped me. I looked at her from head to toe. She ate hurriedly, without asking me about breakfast, as if the morning meant nothing. I tried to smile, to speak casually about my plans for the day, but between us stretched an invisible distance. One I couldn't bridge, one no one else would notice. I didn't understand it, but I knew it wasn't ordinary. Not just today. This feeling had been growing for 3 days now. She had begun to change, and I couldn't call it subtle anymore. Each of her gestures seemed to belong to a repeating pattern, something I could neither ignore nor explain away. The notebook I'd carried for days had become my only tool for tracing these changes. I didn't want to rush into conclusions, didn't want a fleeting feeling to turn into false judgment. Day after day, I wrote down what I saw. Alyssa no longer refused fish, something she used to despise. Yesterday, she ate it and said, "Mom, this smells so good." If I looked closely, that single line was more than a compliment. It was a marker of change. She no longer sang Mason to sleep at night. She said she was tired. But when I met her eyes, I saw absence there. So I kept recording. Everything. The pattern of behaviors not like before. The unfamiliar perfume, the empty bag, the market visits with nothing bought. The same small things repeating with unnerving precision. And I began to ask myself, was I falling into a trap of truth? Was I magnifying shadows, mistaking doubt for discovery? My sense of morality began to waver. Was truth really what I was chasing? Or only a haunting intuition I couldn't define? And if I confronted her, would I be right to do so? Or would I only wound someone I loved? That afternoon, when Alyssa came home, I couldn't help noticing the way she set her tote bag on the table. Her hand lingered on it, careful, almost protective, as if hiding something inside. I said nothing. I just went on with routine, preparing dinner, asking about her day. But inside, my thoughts circled endlessly. The trap of truth had not yet sprung an answer. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat alone with my notebook. I couldn't stop writing. Another day had passed, and more details surfaced. Alyssa had changed. But what exactly was that change? Why did everything in me whisper that something was wrong? I knew I had to face it. And then I began to understand. Truth doesn't come easily. Sometimes it hides in the smallest fragments. Sometimes it asks for patience. I had always prided myself on the integrity of a mother who believed in her child. But in these past days, I couldn't ignore what my eyes had seen. So what should I do? I had filled pages of that notebook, yet I still didn't know if I was doing the right thing. Truth could hurt, but I couldn't keep living inside an illusion. The next morning, I called June, the only person I could confide in. "What do you think I should do?" I asked, my voice low and tired. She was quiet for a moment before saying, "Evelyn, truth never arrives easily. But remember, protecting your child comes first. Don't let suspicion destroy what you've built." Then she added, "Keep watching and writing. Observation is your task now. Don't confront. Let truth speak on its own." Her words eased something inside me. I didn't need to act all at once. I needed patience. I would keep recording, but I wouldn't tighten the air around us. I didn't want to harm anyone. What I wanted was the truth, and I would wait for it to reveal itself. After speaking with June, I decided to keep watching Alyssa, but this time without haste. I would remain silent, listen, and note every detail. Later, when the time came, I'd face the truth with clarity. That evening, when Alyssa returned, I said nothing about the notebook. I treated her as always, keeping our rhythm steady. I didn't want to plant tension where quiet still served me better. Yet deep inside, I knew, once truth surfaced, I would have to face it. And when that moment came, I would have to stand firm and do what was right. By the end of the week, I could no longer deny it. Alyssa's behavior had truly changed. She wasn't the same person I'd known, but feelings alone couldn't justify action. I had to be patient still, to let the truth rise on its own. And with that realization came another. Even when it hurts, truth is the only thing that keeps us steady. The trap of truth can be dangerous, yes, but I would not let fear rule me. I would face it, no matter how much it hurt. Rain fell softly that morning, each droplet sliding down the kitchen window like lines of memory that refused to fade. I sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a cup of coffee, eyes following the thin trails of water as if searching for an answer. Today, everything seemed to move slower, as though the world itself was holding its breath, waiting for something inevitable. And I knew that moment was coming soon. After a long week of observation and notes, it felt as if my entire life had shifted. Alyssa was no longer the daughter I once knew, and I was no longer just a mother, defined by love and protection. I had become a woman who carried suspicion in every step. It wasn't what I wanted, but there was no going back. Everything had changed. Today, I decided I had to face the truth. I couldn't keep living in this fog of uncertainty. I couldn't go on writing without acting. Yet one wrong move could destroy everything. And I knew Alyssa was my daughter. Mason was my son. How could I protect them both at once? The notebook had become my only companion, a living witness to every sign I had captured over the past days. I could see the patterns clearly now, but one missing piece remained. Alyssa herself had yet to speak the truth, and that truth could wound not only me, but Mason as well. I couldn't risk hurting my son over unverified suspicions, yet I also couldn't stand by while Alyssa continued to hide something that might change everything. This morning, Alyssa left the house again. She wore her navy blue jacket, hair tied neatly, but there was something different in her eyes. She didn't look directly at me. She only gave a small nod, as if all words between us had already been said. That, more than anything, deepened my doubts. I couldn't let her walk out without doing something. That was the moment I knew I had to act. Alyssa stepped outside and closed the door behind her. I watched, my chest tight with worry. I couldn't follow her immediately. Not yet. I needed a plan. I needed to ensure that what I did wouldn't shatter our family. That was when I decided I wouldn't just observe, I would verify. Everything I had written, every pattern I'd recorded, had to be connected. I chose to go to Riverside Lofts, the last place Alyssa had visited. Riverside Lofts wasn't a well-known area. It sat far from the town center, beside a winding river, a place people went when they wanted to be unseen, quiet, hidden. And I couldn't ignore the fact that Alyssa had been there more than once. I left home at 10 a.m., pretending nothing was wrong. Driving slowly, I kept a safe distance from her car, careful not to be noticed. The feeling was surreal, playing a game of hide and seek with my own daughter. But I knew that if I didn't, I would never find peace. At 10:20, I reached the vicinity of Riverside Lofts. As I suspected, Alyssa didn't enter through the main gate. She slipped around the back, through a smaller entrance used for deliveries. The large service door swung open, and she stepped inside. My heart tightened. The delivery entrance, so ordinary, yet possibly the doorway to the truth. I stayed back, watching from afar. Alyssa walked into the area without hesitation or disguise. A strange chill ran through me, but I kept writing. I took out my notebook, noting the time, location, and every possible detail. Every name, every street, every car parked nearby became part of the picture forming in my mind. 10:35 a.m. She entered a small building, the door closed behind her. No one seemed to notice me. The delivery door remained open, the scent of fresh paint drifting out, unsettling the still air. I waited. 10 minutes later, Alyssa emerged, empty-handed, nothing in her bag, nothing at all. I wrote quickly, 10:45 a.m. Alyssa left Riverside Lofts, empty-handed. By 11 p.m., I returned to my car, ready to leave, but something held me back. Alyssa had gone there and carried nothing out. What did that mean? How could she visit such a place with nothing in her hands? There had to be something she didn't want me to see. I decided not to go home just yet. I parked at a small cafe nearby, watching from behind the window as the river shimmered under the gray light. I kept writing, piecing together what I'd seen. Tomorrow, I would come back. I would keep watching. That evening, I returned home late. Mason had already eaten and was watching TV. I said nothing to Alyssa about what I'd seen. I didn't want to stir tension that might ruin my focus. Silence, I realized, was my only shield. For now. The next morning, I left the house early. According to plan, I went back to Riverside Lofts to see more. From a distance, I watched every movement, every shadow. But this time, I was prepared, not to confront, but to understand. When I knew the truth, truly knew it, then I would act. But not yet, not now. Day by day, I kept recording. The patterns grew clearer. Alyssa returning to Riverside Lofts again and again, always with an empty bag. The same gestures, the same route. The evidence was lining, and I could feel the truth drawing closer. At last, I knew I couldn't delay much longer. The truth was coming into view, and I would not run from it. However painful, I would do what must be done. For now, I would keep watching, keep writing, and wait until the moment I had enough truth to act without doubt. The days that followed stretched as if time itself had been pulled thin, each moment drawn out and heavy. I couldn't think about anything except Alyssa and the notebook that had become the center of my world. Every morning, I woke, opened its pages, and reread the hurried lines I had written. Yet something was still missing. A crucial piece. A sense of incompletion that gnawed at me, whispering that I hadn't yet reached the end, hadn't yet gathered enough to face her. By the 5th day, I knew I had to act. I couldn't keep living in this suspended chaos. The household moved as always. Meals, small talk, routines. But beneath the surface, I felt it. Alyssa was hiding something. The signs in my notebook were growing sharper, and the weight of unspoken truth pressed against me like a blade. Truth cannot stay buried forever, and I would be the one to unearth it. That evening, when Alyssa came home, I had already made a plan. I couldn't confront her without something solid. My notes might not be enough. But perhaps another pair of eyes could help me confirm what I suspected. June was the only person I trusted now. I couldn't tell her everything, but she would understand that I needed help. June, I need you to help me with something, I said over the phone as soon as Alyssa went into the bathroom. I tried to steady my voice. What is it, Evelyn? Her tone was firm, serious as always. I need you to watch her, just for a while. I can't do this alone. The words tasted wrong in my mouth, but I couldn't stop. You're suspicious of Alyssa? She asked. You shouldn't do this, unless you're sure of what you're accusing her of. I'm not sure, I admitted. But I can feel something being hidden. I can't let it go on. My voice trembled with the strain of it. She paused for a moment, then said quietly, You need to be ready for what comes next. If you truly want the truth, you must face it with courage. Her words stung, but they were right. Truth isn't something you can avoid. The next morning, I began organizing everything I knew. Every entry, every observation from the past week. I remembered what Mrs. Whitaker, my friend from church, once told me. If you don't want the truth, don't go looking for it. But if you do, prepare to face everything that comes with it. That warning echoed in my mind. There was no turning back now. The truth was close, and I would face it, no matter how much it hurt. I decided not to ask Alyssa directly about what I discovered. I didn't want her to feel cornered. I just wanted one more chance to verify what she was hiding. After dinner, I sat alone with my notebook, rereading the week's entries. Her actions contradicted themselves in every way. She said she'd gone to the farmer's market, but I saw her turn into Depot Alley. She said she hadn't bought anything, but I saw her enter a secluded area no one else knew. She claimed she needed time alone, but there was something wrong in the way she hid the places she went. By the end of the week, I decided I couldn't let Alyssa leave again without an answer. She wasn't a stranger, she was my daughter, and I had to understand. But I also knew I couldn't rush. I couldn't let panic twist what was left of our bond. Truth must be faced with calm, with control. I wasn't just a watchful woman. I was her mother, the one who had raised and loved her from childhood. But I also knew that in families, truth is often the hardest thing to accept. I couldn't let suspicion destroy what love had built. After dinner, I waited for Alyssa to come out of the bathroom. I had decided to face her, not with anger, but with a question. Just one. Alyssa, what are you hiding from me? She stepped out, her expression tired, as though she had already anticipated the question. I couldn't read what was behind her eyes, but I knew she understood. My silence had run out. Is there something you want to tell me? I asked softly, though my voice carried a weight I couldn't disguise. She was silent for a long while, searching for words. Then she sighed and sat across from me. Mom, I'm not hiding anything from you. I don't know how to tell you. Her voice was quiet, but sorrow threaded through every syllable. What is it that you can't tell me? I asked, unable to keep the tremor of worry out of my tone. She looked down at her hands, then raised her eyes to mine. You'll be angry, but I can't keep living like this. I did something you'll never forgive. The fear in her voice pierced me. I knew the truth had finally come. But could I bear it? Tell me, Alyssa. I'm not angry. I just want to understand, I said, holding my composure, refusing to let the ache in my chest consume me. She closed her eyes as if bracing herself for something unbearable. "You'll be angry, Mom. I've been seeing someone I can't let go of. You'll never accept it. I've betrayed you." The words struck me like a slap. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Alyssa, my daughter, had been meeting someone in secret, someone she couldn't walk away from. My mind flooded with questions. Who was it? Why had she hidden this from me? Had everything I trusted been a lie? The room tilted, my thoughts scattered. I couldn't understand how she could do this, but I knew I couldn't stop now. I had to know everything. I had to face it all. Truth couldn't be buried again. I love you, Alyssa, and you love me, but you've done something I can't easily forgive. I need time to think. I stood, forcing myself to remain composed, though the sting of betrayal burned deep. The truth had finally come, and now I had to live with it. That night, the house fell into an unnatural silence. After the confrontation with Alyssa, I couldn't sleep. My mind spun endlessly with 1,000 questions. Had I done the right thing? Was I too harsh? But then I reminded myself, once the truth is spoken, there's no turning back. Alyssa had confessed everything she'd hidden, and now I had to decide what to do next. Under the soft amber light of the kitchen, I prepared dinner, though nothing felt ordinary anymore. Every movement, every sound in the room seemed suspended in the thick stillness. Mason sat at the table, his innocent face a small lifeline in the storm inside me. Daniel wasn't home yet, but I knew that tonight I couldn't avoid a decision any longer. I had made up my mind. Tonight, I would face Alyssa again, directly, without fear or hesitation. Enough of doubt and silence, but I also knew that a confrontation in a family wasn't a battle to win. It had to be a conversation, a reckoning, a search for understanding that didn't destroy what was left between us. When Alyssa walked into the kitchen, I looked at her for a long moment before speaking. This time, I wouldn't let emotion lead me. I needed calm. I needed control. "Alyssa," I said, my voice steady, "I need you to explain what's really going on. I can't stay silent anymore, not when everything is this clear." She froze for a moment, searching for words, then sighed softly. "You wouldn't understand, Mom." "Don't say that. You can explain it. I want to understand." I tried to keep my face calm, though my heart was pounding. Her words, "You wouldn't understand," cut deeper than she could know. Was she avoiding the truth again? She took a slow breath and began, her voice trembling but determined. "I've been seeing someone, Mom. Someone I can't walk away from. You'll never understand why I did it, but I love him." It was like being struck in the chest. The words weren't just shocking. They were a betrayal I hadn't dared imagine. Alyssa loved someone else, and she had hidden it from me all this time. The thought made the air feel too thick to breathe. Questions tumbled through my mind. Who was he? How long had this been going on? Why had she lied to me? But I forced myself to stay composed. I couldn't let anger cloud what I needed to hear. "You love him?" I asked quietly. "Then why did you hide it? Why couldn't you tell me from the start?" She looked at me, her eyes tired. "I didn't know how to, Mom. Everything happened so fast. I didn't want to hurt you, but I couldn't keep pretending." Her voice cracked, words breaking in her throat. I stared at her, not just with disappointment, but with a cold, hollow ache I couldn't put into words. I had always been a mother who trusted her children, who fought for them, who believed in their goodness. And now I had to face the truth that one of them had betrayed that trust. Inside, something rumbled, but I couldn't let the pain take control, not with Mason watching. He was sitting there, quietly observing, too young to understand but old enough to feel the tension in the air. "Mason," I said softly, forcing my voice to stay gentle. "Go take your bath, sweetheart. Mommy needs to talk to Alyssa for a while." He hesitated for a moment, then nodded and walked toward the bathroom. I watched him disappear down the hall, my heart twisting. Mason was everything I had, and I would protect him no matter what. When the bathroom door closed, I turned back to Alyssa. She sat still, eyes full of sorrow and regret. "I can't accept this, Alyssa," I said finally, "but you have to understand, I still love you, no matter what." Tears welled in her eyes. "I know, Mom, but I can't keep lying, to you or to myself. I have to live honestly." Her words cut deep, sharp as glass. How could I forgive something like this? How could I accept that the daughter I'd raised with so much love had deceived me? Part of me wanted to lash out, to expose her betrayal to the world, but another part whispered that punishment would fix nothing. A mother's love isn't built on judgment. It's built on endurance, on finding a way forward even when everything feels broken. "I don't know what to do now," I said softly, my voice trembling. "But I'll never abandon you. I love you, Alyssa." She looked at me, eyes red with tears. "I'm sorry, Mom. I don't know how to make this right, but I'll try. I'll do anything." I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her, my daughter, the child I had carried, fed and prayed for, trying to understand the woman she had become. Love doesn't disappear overnight, but it must learn boundaries. If she had sinned, then she must also learn repentance. "You can make it right," I said quietly. "But understand this. I can't forgive everything at once. You'll have to take responsibility and face the consequences of what you've done." Alyssa nodded, tears spilling freely. "I will, Mom. I'll do whatever it takes. I won't fail you again." I didn't know if that was true, but I had given her a chance, and I knew I couldn't let pain or anger destroy what was left of us. The truth had torn through our home, but hatred wouldn't heal it. I would forgive, but not today. Not yet. Our story wasn't one of easy endings. There would be hard days ahead, words left unsaid and wounds still tender. But one thing was certain. I would protect my family, protect Mason, and somehow, find peace again. As for Alyssa, I would guide her down a new path, one where she would learn that love is not just forgiveness, but also the courage to live with honesty and the weight of her own choices. A week had passed since Alyssa's confession about her secret relationship. Those days felt like living beneath a quiet, gathering storm, still on the surface, but heavy with what might come next. Each morning, I woke with the same weight pressing on my chest, the same looping thought that no matter how much I tried, I couldn't escape what had happened. The truth was out. But the question that haunted me still remained. Could I ever mend what was broken? That morning, I woke later than usual. My body felt leaden, drained from too many sleepless nights. The air in the house was thick, unmoving. Alyssa still lived here, yet she felt like a stranger, a shadow moving through the same walls but never truly inside them. Mason, innocent and oblivious, was my only point of light. But even his laughter, faintly heard from the next room, carried a brittle edge these days. Today, I knew I needed to speak to her. I couldn't let this quiet tension stretch endlessly. We both had to face what she'd done, and what it had done to us. When Alyssa came home that afternoon, I was already waiting for her at the dining table, the same table that once held our laughter, our family dinners, our prayers. Now, it felt like a courtroom. The air was cold, still. Mason had already eaten and gone to draw in his room. "You're home," I said. My tone was even, stripped of warmth. She nodded, sitting across from me. Her silence filled the room. I could see exhaustion written in her eyes, remorse too, but it didn't lessen the ache in my heart. I had loved her fiercely, protected her all my life, and now I didn't know how to reach her. "Alyssa," I began, "we need to talk about what happened. You've disappointed me deeply, but I still love you, even if I don't understand everything yet." Her eyes shimmered with tears. "Mom, I'm sorry. I don't know how to make you forgive me." "You have to understand," I said quietly. "Forgiveness doesn't come easily. Love doesn't mean ignoring what's wrong. Love means taking responsibility for yourself, for the choices you make." She looked down at her hands, silent. The weight of guilt seemed to pull her inward, and though it hurt, part of me was relieved. She needed to feel the gravity of it, to understand that change doesn't come from apology alone. "I know you love him," I said carefully. "And I know you're hurting because of your decision. But love doesn't always lead to what's right. Sometimes, love brings consequences we can't escape." Alyssa didn't interrupt. She listened, eyes glistening. I could tell she understood. My words weren't meant to punish. They were a warning, a way to steady us both in the wreckage. "I don't want to destroy our family," I continued. "But you have to see that every action has a cost. If you truly love him, you'll have to face those consequences honestly. You can't hide behind secrecy anymore." At that, she broke. Tears streamed down her face. "I love you, Mom. I never wanted to hurt you. I just wanted to live honestly. For once, I can't keep pretending." "I know," I whispered, feeling my throat tighten. "But I can't accept everything without change. I still love you, but we'll have to rebuild brick by brick." The silence that followed was deep, almost sacred. For the first time in days, I looked into Alyssa's eyes and didn't see evasion. I saw truth, painful, unfiltered truth, and in that truth was the faintest glimmer of something like hope. We sat there for a long time, neither speaking. The distance between us wasn't gone, but it no longer felt unbridgeable. We were both wounded, but the wounds had begun to breathe. That night's dinner wasn't like any before. No laughter, no small talk. Just the soft clatter of utensils and the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. It wasn't peace, but it wasn't war either. It was something new, fragile, uncertain, a beginning. Later, after Mason had gone to bed, I sat alone in the living room. The notebook lay beside me, its pages full. Every entry, every doubt, every recorded moment of fear. Tonight, for the first time in weeks, I didn't open it. I let it rest. I had learned enough from those pages. Now it was time to live, not just to record. Through the window, I saw Alyssa's reflection in the faint light, her eyes distant, thoughtful. We weren't whole again, not yet. But we had taken a step forward. She still had much to do to earn back my trust, but she understood now. The truth couldn't heal us if we kept hiding behind lies. I exhaled slowly, whispering to myself, "One day we'll mend, but not tonight. We need time, just time." That night, Alyssa said nothing more. She retreated quietly to her room, and I stayed in the dim light of the living room, holding the silence between us like something fragile and precious. We were still far apart, but the truth, at last, had given us a place to begin again. Several months had passed since that tense conversation with Alyssa. Things hadn't gone back to the way they were, but the air no longer carried that suffocating heaviness. I could see small shifts in her, quiet, deliberate changes. And though the distance between us still lingered, there was something softer now, something healing. Alyssa was still my daughter, and no matter how hard the past had been, I would be here, helping her find her way back to herself. I'd begun to realize that forgiveness isn't easy. It isn't something you hand to someone without reflection or understanding. Forgiving doesn't mean erasing everything. It means accepting that people can make mistakes, and that what truly matters is how they learn and grow from them. That was what I was trying to teach Alyssa, that truth and accountability are the foundation of any real relationship. Every morning, I felt the change in the air. Our house was no longer a place of silence. It was becoming a place of healing. Alyssa and I talked more now. The walls that had once held only tension were beginning to breathe again. The small moments, sitting together in the evenings, sharing small stories, learning to listen, brought back pieces of what we had lost. It wasn't much, but it was enough to give me hope. This morning, I rose early as usual. When I entered the kitchen, I found Alyssa standing by the sink, preparing breakfast. She wore a simple gray t-shirt, her hair tied back neatly. Her face was thoughtful, but the anxiety that once haunted her had faded. I watched her for a moment, and a gentle smile formed on my lips. We had been through the worst, but we had also begun walking, step by small step, towards something better. "Alyssa, you're making breakfast?" I asked, my voice light, free of the tension that once weighed every word. "Yes, Mom," she replied softly. "I'm making breakfast for Mason before school, and I wanted to make something special for you too." Her voice was calm, her eyes focused on her task. There was no hesitation, no fear of judgment, just quiet sincerity. "Thank you, dear," I said, my chest warming. No grand gestures were needed. That simple act was enough to tell me she was trying. Breakfast passed peacefully. Mason ate quickly and ran off to his room to study, his laughter echoing down the hall. Then it was just the two of us, Alyssa and I, sitting together in a silence that no longer hurt. I knew I couldn't erase what had happened, but I also knew I couldn't carry pain forever. "Mom?" Alyssa said suddenly, her voice steady, her eyes meeting mine. "I know I've disappointed you. I can't change the past, but I want to make you proud. I don't want to be the reason you hurt anymore." I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her, really looked, and saw that she meant it. Her words weren't hollow apologies. They carried understanding. She was no longer running from what she'd done. "I know you can," I said softly. "But you need to remember, change doesn't happen all at once. It comes step by step, first, then second, then third. And through it all, I'll be here, walking beside you." I wasn't ready to say I'd forgiven her completely. Forgiveness is not a door you can fling open in a day. But I had chosen to begin. Because without forgiveness, there could be no peace, no future. When I looked at Alyssa again, I saw something new in her eyes, a quiet strength, a glimmer of hope. I didn't know what challenges lay ahead, but I knew she was finally ready to face them. After breakfast, I cleared the dishes while Alyssa washed her hands. The morning light filtered into the kitchen, warm and soft, and I realized this home would endure. Alyssa had chosen to change, and I had chosen to stand with her. Just then, Mason ran in, his small voice breaking the stillness. "Mom, will you read me a story tonight? The one about the talking fox?" I smiled, brushing his hair gently. "Of course, sweetheart. Tonight, we'll read something special." Alyssa smiled too, an unguarded, genuine smile. For the first time in months, it reached her eyes. She looked at Mason, then at me. And in that moment, I knew she was finding her way back. Not because I had already forgiven her, but because she had chosen the right path to begin again. That night, after Mason was asleep, I sat alone in the living room. Through the window, stars shimmered faintly above the quiet yard. The porch light still burned softly, though no one was outside. And for the first time, that light didn't feel like waiting. It felt like peace. Not an ending, but a beginning. Alyssa was still on her journey, and I would be there, not to judge, but to guide her, to make sure she didn't walk it alone. Mason was still my heart, the reason I protected everything I had. But Alyssa was part of that heart too. I could never forget that. We weren't perfect. No family ever is. But love was still here, pulsing quietly through the cracks, binding us together in the ways that mattered most. As I once told Alyssa, "I'll always be beside you. Even when you fall, I'll help you stand again." It wasn't just a promise to her, it was a promise to us, to our family. Because family isn't made of people who never falter. It's made of people who choose to rise again and again. We had started over, and I believed with all my heart that one day we would find peace and happiness again, no matter how long or difficult the road ahead might be. When I sit back and look at everything that has happened, nothing was easy. But truth has its own way. And in the end, it is not only what breaks us, but also what heals the wounds time itself could not mend. Sometimes, we must face the most painful things to discover the strength within us. And that's exactly what I did. I faced betrayal, pain, and the kind of loss that feels impossible to survive. Yet in those moments, I also found the quiet light of healing within my family. Alyssa learned her lessons the hard way, and so did I. I no longer seek revenge. I don't want to hurt anyone. What I want is fairness and peace in my family. Because sometimes, revenge isn't about causing pain. It's about choosing forgiveness and helping someone find their way back. Healing is never easy, but I believe we can always begin again, no matter what we've been through. That's what I did. For myself, for Alyssa, and for this family. Each passing day teaches me that recovery isn't a destination, it's a journey. We don't need to be perfect. We only need the courage to face ourselves and the people we love, to start again, even when nothing feels certain. Truth, though painful, guides those willing to learn and change. And now, I want to hear your story. Have you ever faced betrayal and found a way to rise above it? Share your experience in the comments. I truly want to listen and understand your journey. Let's heal together and keep walking forward, no matter how rough the road may be. Because the truth is, each of our journeys can always begin again, no matter how deep the scars of the past.